And good evening and welcome, of course, to Super League Raw Weekly. Great to have everybody along. And as you can see, this evening we are joined by rugby league journalist royalty, Martyn Sadler of League Express. Both Greg and I, I'm sure, have read many an article by Martyn over the years, and we're absolutely overjoyed, Martyn, that you would join us on Weekly. Well done.
Thank you, David. I bet you disagreed with most of them, though.
We're going to be brutally honest with you, Martyn. If we think it's all about debate, when we agree with you, we agree with you, and when we don't, we don't. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely.
So we may as well kick straight off then. Obviously,
I've got myself off mute now.
Good man. We've brought Martyn up to speed off air this evening. Everybody, getting there on the chat. They're already starting to fly in. Steve Wilson, good evening. Steve Cartledge, good evening. Debbie Williams McGann, there's an old friend of mine. Good evening to you, and we'll keep giving you shout outs throughout the show. But yes, we brought Martyn up to speed. We're going to look at the final three Super League squads: Catalan, Leeds, and Warrington. And of course, we're going to preview round one. We're just 48 hours away to the greatest game on earth, kicking off on Thursday night at the Halliwell Jones Stadium, a fitting stadium for the start of Super League 2023. Greg's keeping his eye out for the tribunal information. We'll keep you up to speed with that. But Martyn, over to you. First things first. What are you most looking forward to in 2023? What's your thoughts?
I'm just looking forward to some more great action of the sort that we saw quite a lot of last year, actually. Funny enough, David, I'm a strictly neutral guy, as you obviously know. I can't really support one club over another. But I've got to say, the teams that really entertained me last year, obviously Wigan were fantastic because they had those guys, Wakefield, Bevan French, and I include Liam Marshall as well as being one of those three terrific speedsters who were not just got great pace, but are really skillful too. But I also loved watching Warrington, perhaps even more so, because, not Warrington. I'm being influenced by you two guys. No, watching Salford is what I meant. I really enjoyed watching Salford, and I thought they were such an enterprising side last year. And I would go so far as to say that when Salford won at Castleford, if you remember, on August the 29th, which was Bank Holiday Monday, they went to Castleford and scored 50 points. Yeah. And I think, after about 15 minutes, they were 24-0 up. And that was a scintillating performance. And I've sort of said several times to several different people that I thought that one display that day by Salford at Castleford, when Castleford were really up for the game because they were trying to just themselves qualify for the playoffs. And so it was a really crucial game. And Salford had a lot of supporters there at the Jungle. But that performance was the best performance in Super League last year by any team at any stage, in my view. Sadly for Salford, as they got right to the end of the season into the playoffs, they obviously lost Brodie Croft for the last game at St Helens. And in that same game, Andy Ackers went off after 2 minutes. And it was a great shame because they'd had that spine in place, Brearley, Croft, Sneed and Ackers throughout the season. And of course, what that showed is that if you can keep your key spine players fit all through the season, then you will, probably have a great season. And that's what they did, despite having a fairly slow start to the season last year. So, that's how I said. I'm just looking forward to seeing more intrigue of that sort, and hopefully seeing fewer injuries because, what you find is that a lot of clubs that perform badly at various points in the season tend to do that because they suffer injuries to key players, and probably they've not got the experienced squad members that can slot into the team and effectively replace those guys.
Yeah, was Brodie Croft a fitting man of steel for you last season, then, Martyn?
Oh well, yeah. Although I've got some doubts about the way the man of steel is picked these days because
absolutely,
absolutely. They actually copied what we do in League Express without attribution, I hasten to say. They saw what we were doing to win to get our Albert Goldthorpe winner, who was also Brodie Croft last year, and they decided to copy it. But the trouble is, by doing that, they will what we'll find from now on is that the man of steel will nearly always be a spine player, a halfback, or, because it's so tempting to give points in that sort of situation to the guy who pulls most of the strings. And my argument with that, and I've got a sort of philosophical argument with that, because in my view, in rugby league, when you look at rugby league players, you can talk about two specific characteristics. One is skill level, so for example, Brodie Croft showed magnificent skill last year, brilliant at most aspects of the game. But they're also, the second thing is what I would call the qualities needed to be a rugby league player, a top rugby league player. And those are not skill things, but they're things like courage, toughness, self-discipline.
Liam Farrell, Martyn.
The ability to work as part of a team. And in the old days, when the Man of Steel was decided by an end of season vote by whoever was on the Man of Steel panel, which I never was, oddly enough, but whoever was on, they could pick out players like Jamie Peacock, and players like that, players who were not necessarily the most skillful players, but who had incredible qualities of, the things I've just mentioned, endurance, stamina, all those things that, and when you think about, the description Man of Steel, that's what it suggests to me. I know the Man of Steel was set up many years ago when it was Truman Steel Company that sponsored it, and that's why it was called Man of Steel. But nonetheless, the Man of Steel, to me, suggests, that sort of toughness, courage, that sort of never say die attitude that, the sort of best forwards, for example, tend to display. And it's a shame that they will probably never win this award ever again for as long as the voting method is as it now is.
Yeah, I mean, me and Dave were saying that all last season, and we see it reflected in Sky as well. It's the glamour player that gets the man of the match on Sky, and it's not that player that is actually doing the hard work, like you said, Dave. Liam Farrell or
Liam Farrell. Liam Farrell for the last 3, maybe 4 years, could have been Man of Steel. Let's be fair, Warrington fans do not like Wigan, but I mean, Liam Farrell has been a phenomenal pro. He's a 9 out of 10 in most games. Yeah, and you're right. He's never going to get a look.
Is another example, isn't he?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, his meters, Walmsley, is just. It's just
the way he played against St George at the weekend, I thought was, terrific. Yeah. And Alex can step up to that level very easily and compete with the best what a shame that he missed the World Cup, of course, as well.
Indeed.
Liam Farrell was probably that missing piece of the jigsaw that maybe England needed.
Well, Farrell and Walmsley both missed the World Cup.
Yeah.
And Lomax. Let's not forget Johnny Lomax. I mean, Lomax has never won Man of Steel, which again, I mean, we talk about, as you said, Martyn, the glamour players. I mean, for somebody like Johnny Lomax, especially Saints 4 in a row and all the rest of it, I mean, Lomax, he's just the quality.
Well, he combines those two things I've just mentioned because he's a tremendously skillful player, but he's also got those fabulous qualities, which he's actually had since he was a young kid because, he came back from that terrible injury that he suffered as a youngster in, playing junior rugby. And, it was told, I believe then, that he perhaps would never play again. And, he's just done some incredible things as Johnny Lomax. And, it's difficult to overemphasize what an admirable guy he is.
Yeah, I've just heard today on about the Man of Steel that Kyle Amor, Luke Gale and Danica Prim have joined the panel to vote for Man of Steel this season. So,
well, what they tend to do, I mean, as far as the panel is concerned, I think what they do with Man of Steel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is they have the top 3 players, I think it is, and then make a decision on which of those 3, in their view, should get the award. And I've got given the way the award's structured, I've got no problems with Brodie Croft winning it last year because I thought he was absolutely brilliant, But as I say, if we thought about this a bit more broadly, then other players, who are not the glamour boys might have well been considered. And as you say, Liam Farrell I wouldn't say, can we really honestly say that Liam Farrell isn't glamorous? Maybe he is.
I'm not going to tell him that he's not, Martyn. You might.
Well, I'm sure his mother thinks he is, but he's a great guy. What a great guy Liam Farrell is, and what a great player. And,
great professional,
what a faithful servant to Wigan.
Yeah. Unbelievable player. So just want to obviously read your article yesterday as well, Martyn, and I think Greg will agree with this as well. I think the pre-season tournament down under, I mean, you commented on it in your article in League Express this week. Really interesting concept. I think, Greg and me were talking before you joined us earlier about, the pre-season games and the like. And yeah, I mean, is it something that, just for a bit of interest that we should look at in Britain next year?
Well, yeah, and oddly enough, given what's coming out of IMG, I get the feeling that we'll probably end up with the Challenge Cup, as split into pools. I'm not quite sure how big the pools will be and how many games will be played in those pools, but that will probably start the season off from 2024. But I certainly do. The amazing thing was that every single one of those 9 pre-season challenge games was actually shown on Sky, which is quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And I've recorded all of them, and God knows when I'm going to be able to watch them. But I found them really compelling, because the other thing I really like about those games is the fact that a lot of them are taken to, they're not played at the conventional home ground of the competing teams. They often take them to country areas, to places that don't often see NRL games. Yeah. And you can see the enthusiasm in the crowd. It's great watching it, because, I love seeing a game that the crowd are obviously enjoying. And that happens a lot, with these games. And I thought there was some scintillating rugby, some absolutely wonderful tries. I was talking to where I live in North Yorkshire. I've got a news agent who's actually a New Zealander, a New Zealand guy who used to play rugby union in New Zealand for his club in Auckland. But I often talk to him about rugby of either code, and he enjoys watching league. And he was commenting yesterday how much more attractive the pre-season challenge games were that he'd seen in terms of, the tries scored, the quality of rugby being played. And he contrasted that very sharply with what he'd watched from the International Rugby Union games at the weekend, where there'd been countless examples of pushover tries with, rolling mauls and all that sort of stuff that we don't really enjoy much. No. And to be honest, I don't think even most rugby union fans enjoy that much either. Yeah. So it's, it's a great it's a great showcase for the game. And I really like the way they've done this. They've created a competition. It's only over 2 weeks, but there's a trophy and a big financial prize, $100,000 at stake for the team that wins it. They've been very creative in the way they've devised the point system. 12 points for a win, bonus points for tries, offloads, and clean breaks. Yeah. So you can get 15 points maximum. Yeah. I think that's a real great thing. I've enjoyed every minute of it. And it was interesting. I particularly like the Queensland clubs in the NRL. I'm a bit of a closet Queenslander, I suppose. I always support Queensland in the state of origin, and it was great to see all 4 Queensland clubs playing each other, and the 2 games both ended in draws. Which was fantastic, really. Yeah. Although it does mean that none of the Queensland clubs will win the competition, but
as they say in another code, in another sport, rugby league was the winner. I think the only thing that disappoints me, and Greg will agree with this as well, the only thing that disappoints me, Martyn, again around the Sky bit, is the fact that, as you rightly say, there's weekends where they show more Australian rugby league than British rugby league, and that's a real crying shame.
Oh yeah,
It really is. I mean, look, I love the NRL. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the NRL app that you can get on your phone, and you can watch every game on your phone live. And I have that, and I watch pretty much every NRL game. I mean, I love my rugby league, but there's nothing better. First weekend, we'll talk about that in a minute. We've got the 2 games on Sky, plus we've got the game on Channel 4, and
we've also got the World Cup Challenge game, of course. So
we have indeed
quite a few this weekend.
Yeah,
we have indeed.
Adam Hills has said, hasn't he, that he thinks we have to be in a situation where every rugby league game is shown in this country.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I think
and the Channel 4 bit. And the Channel 4 bit, Greg, I think, what Channel 4 showed last year, I think I saw figures today, I think it's something like 2.6 million fresh
2.9 million,
people,
I think, unique viewers, 2.9 million.
Yeah, the unique viewers bit. But as Adam Hills rightly said, that's in spite of it being very drip-fed on Channel 4. If people knew at 12:30 every Saturday there was a game on Channel 4, that would help.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a great timing as well. The games kick off at 1:00 on Saturday, which is a great time because if you watch the game, you've then still got time to go out. If you're watching a community game or something like that, you can still go out and do that without missing the professional game. And no, I think Channel 4's coverage started with a bang at Headingley last year when your team Warrington won at Leeds in what was a thrilling game.
The highlight of our season.
Well, it was, as it turned out. I was saying that today to Darryl Powell. It reminded him a bit.
Oh, name dropper.
Not sure he was keen on being reminded of that, but no,
we played well in 2 games last year, Martyn.
To start with, that Connor Wrench dashed down the left wing and passed inside to Widder for a wonderful try, which started the Channel 4 coverage with a bang, and they were thrilled. Because I was there that day at in the main stand at Headingley, and I can tell you they were absolutely thrilled. And a lot of their people who came were saying, "Good God, is this rugby league? Is this what it's really like?" I mean, that was of course helped by Headingley being a really great stadium these days. Which it's a wonderful. The Leeds club's done a wonderful job in developing that stadium. But it was a great day. And a shame for Warrington that it didn't really get any better than that.
Yeah, it did. Well, we played well against Catalan in Magic, but that's another story. Couple of shout outs: Alex Sharp, James Humes, Adam Haglin, a new name that. Welcome, Adam. I can't recall seeing your name before. Judy Unsworth, Ian Potter, Tracy Wilson's with us as well as always. Keep your comments in the chat coming. Right then, let's get into some of these squads because I'm very aware of the time, and we'll keep picking Martyn's brains as we go through the show this evening. Right. Okay. First of all, before we look at the first squad, which will be Leeds, the Super League Raw mini league on the Super League Fantasy League page. Great to see more and more of the Fans Forum members joining this. We're now up to 9. It's growing all the time. We posted on the Fans Forum page our password, our pin. Get on there, and we'll keep an eye on this as the season goes on. And if you're watching us, and there's a lot of people watching us, share now. Press the share button. Let your family and friends know that you're watching Super League Raw Weekly, and let's increase.
Can I thank all those new members that have joined us this week as well? We've had a fair few this week.
We have. It's phenomenal. It's fantastic. The community is growing. Dare I say, Channel 4, if you ever want to do a magazine show live, you know where to come. Anyway, we move on.
Martyn.
Let's get on with it. So, go on, mate.
David Martyn.
You what?
I'll get fired.
Right, Leeds Rhinos. We're going to start with Leeds Rhinos. We're going to look at Leeds Rhinos squad. First of all, traditional, I don't know what it is. I think some of the smartest home jerseys are always the Leeds Rhinos. Every time I remember when Magic Weekend was over in Huddersfield, and that year, I remember me and the wife stood there and the Leeds Rhinos come in, and it was like cracking shirts, the home shirts of Leeds. And of course, the away, very reminiscent of the Warrington one. Very reminiscent of the Warrington one.
Very much like it, yeah.
Nice shirts. We like that. Right, let's look at these squads then. So 2022, a lot of changes. Of course, Jack Walker was allowed to go last season. Everybody was surprised when Liam Sutcliffe was allowed to go. Matt Pryor, of course, has left the Leeds Rhinos. Brad Dwyer moving on to Hull. Alex Mellor gone. Bodine Thompson, who's been a good servant for Leeds. Tom Briscoe, obviously, over to Lee. Jack Broadbent and Maurice Mustafa as well. They're the exit people. Of course, Mikhail Aletsky was both in the Super League, official Super League Dream Team, and the Super League Raw Dream Team last season. So let's take a look at this 2023 squad. First and foremost, as you can see there at number 4, Nene McDonald from Lee has come into the squad. We'll take a look at him in a moment. As Sam Lizone, he's come in as well. Durrell Alferts, who's a phenomenal pro. Again, surprising Cass let him go. With the dare I say it, fragility of David Foster-Tua. Of course, he had a lot of injuries last year. Maybe he'll be put into to centre. I don't know, but I think Durrell will get a lot of minutes at Leeds this year. Justin Sangaré coming in from Toulouse. He had a good season at Toulouse last year, to be fair to him. And of course, James McDonald, the Wigan centre stroke second row, has been brought in as well. Luke Hooley from the Batley Bulldogs. Good to see him coming in and being given a taste of Super League as well. And of course, a couple of the young lads coming in. So, Greg, I'll start with you. In your opinion, stronger, the same, or weaker this year?
I think more or less the same.
Yeah.
I think Matt Pryor, he was he's a good prop, but I think age had caught up with him. I think they might miss Brad Dwyer coming off the bench. I think that's where I think they might struggle, because Brad Dwyer last season came on and won a couple of games on his own for Leeds, kind of mid-season time. I think they're more or less
well, of course,
same as they
you've
were.
got to remember Jared O'Connor, though, because if you remember, Jared O'Connor started to get a bit more game time last year for Leeds. And of course, they're backing him, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, and quite rightly so. But I think Brad Dwyer's got a bit of the X factor when he comes off the bench. I'm not saying that because he's ex-Warrington, because he did the same for us. He did the same for Leeds, and I think he might be the big miss for Leeds this season.
Well, again, in League, I think it might have been in League Express actually, where they did a piece on Brad Dwyer, who was very adamant that he doesn't want to be that impact player at Hull. He wants the minutes. He wants to be doing the shift, and I think he's got it in his tank to do that. Martyn, what's your thoughts? Do you think Leeds have strengthened this season? What's your thoughts?
Not really. I mean, they might have done, but they've taken a bit of a gamble by signing quite a few players who are not yet fully established. And who, they've got a few players out of the lower leagues, which is an admirable thing to do, I think. But I do think they've lost some real talent. I mean, Jack Walker, a few years ago, he played in the 2017 Grand Final as a teenager, but I don't think there's ever been an unluckier player with injury. And I noticed he got injured again at the weekend for Bradford, got another hamstring injury. He is, I mean, it's interesting because a lot of Australian clubs were looking at Jack, back in those days, 17 and 18, when he was just such a young kid. And, his career has obviously been so badly affected by injury. But, and as you say, Liam Sutcliffe, I'm not sure. I mean, Nenny McDonald coming in for Liam Sutcliffe, it seems a straight swap there.
Well, as you're talking, Martyn, we'll take a look at Nenny McDonald, because for those who didn't see Lee last year, this lad's a big unit. He is a big unit. 27 tries in 27 appearances last season for Lee, and he's a big lad, isn't he?
He is, but he was doing that in the Championship, wasn't he? And we've got to remember that, players who can look devastating at that level can then come up to Super League and not look quite as effective. And that's the danger. I mean, obviously, Liam Sutcliffe was an established Super League player, and he's now gone to Hull, and Hull will get the benefit of his experience.
Absolutely.
But I also agree about Brad Dwyer. Brad Dwyer is the sort of player I love to watch, and incredibly creative, very, very quick and sharp out of dummy half. I think Hull have signed another, cracking player there. And I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? At Hull, Danny Houghton must be nearing the end of his career. He's obviously at the veteran stage now, and Brad, looks like the man who will probably be able to step into his shoes, as a permanent starter. So I'm just not sure. I mean, I'm just not sure that that Leeds are stronger. But having said that, what you've got to say about Leeds is that Rowan Smith, when he came in last year, Leeds were looking pretty depressed and downhearted.
Yeah.
And he actually revived them to such a degree that they reached the grand final. Now, that has to tell you a lot about Rowan Smith as a coach.
Absolutely.
And I would hate to say that, I know even a tenth as much as he does about his players. And if Rowan Smith, I mean, again, the other thing, he's done two other things that are really quite interesting. He's sort of said that, they're not going to have a single captain this year, which, I find quite surprising. And my old mate Gary Schofield had a bit of a go at them.
He did
this week for that decision. And they've also said they're going to look at short kickoffs a lot this year. That's quite interesting because not many coaches give away, how they're going to strategize the season, do they? We'll have to wait and see whether Rowan Smith was, perhaps putting out something that might not necessarily be strictly true. But I can't see why, if that's what he said, I would imagine that's what they'll do. And that's going to be really interesting, I think. So,
well, how many times, Martyn? How many times do you see that tactic employed with 2 or 3 minutes to go, and actually the team that kick retain possession? So actually, if he does
frequently, yeah.
So if he does that, I think there's going to be a lot of coaches and a lot of spectators looking at it as a strategy. And I think if they get a lot of fruit from it early doors in the season, I won't be surprised to see other coaches follow suit. Equally, if it goes the other way and actually they're giving up 40 meters of territory all the time, he might rein it in. But yeah, very very interesting. And again, going back to the chat here, I rate Dwyer in terms of what he does. I think Dwyer's got progressively better over his career. We've all said that. But again, in the chat here, Alex Sharp, Adam Hanglin doesn't rate him. Of course, everybody's got a view. But Alex Sharp, he says, sorry, not Alex Sharp. Who was it? Steve Wilson. Hull fan Steve, he's delighted with the signings of Sutcliffe and Dwyer, and he sees both of those as massive losses for Leeds, and I'd agree.
Well, big games for Hull, that's the thing, big
Absolutely.
Games for Hull, and I think Hull will really get the benefit of those two players. I think it could be a good season for them this year.
Breaking news, Greg.
Yes, he's got 6 games.
6-game ban for Maguire.
Josh Maguire, right.
Right, okay.
So that's why I've been a little bit quiet. I've been monitoring everything. Yeah. It looks like, he's got a 6-game ban.
That's going to be interesting.
That was not unexpected, was it?
No, it wasn't.
But
it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yes. I don't think we've heard the end of this from Mr. Maguire.
No, it wouldn't appear so.
From what I've heard coming out of the club this week, that could rumble on.
Could rumble on.
Yeah.
Well, we'll leave that for another day. Sam Lizone has come across as well from the NRL. 133 NRL appearances. So a player who's been there, done it in the NRL. He was in the All-Star 2017 team, so he's got a bit of pedigree. The boy, he's a big lad. He's a big lad. Obviously, the guy comes in the Matt Pryor piece. Matt Pryor out. They need a bit of beef up front, no doubt about it.
Well, the thing about Matt Pryor, the thing about Matt Pryor was he was a great leader on the pitch. He really was a very, very important cog in the Leeds wheel, and they need somebody else to be able to show that sort of leadership. Obviously, Mikola Jeledzki, you hope is going to step up, although I think he will be missing the first game or two, won't he, Mikola? So. Yeah. You would imagine Leeds, will be facing quite a steep climb to compete with Warrington this Thursday night. But who knows? First game of the season, you never really tell what's going to happen, can you?
This is it. Yeah, and apparently Leeds have got a few players missing as well on Friday.
They have. We will go.
So we shall talk about that later.
We will go through that in a mo. So that's the Leeds Rhinos. Let's take a look at their first 5 fixtures. So here we go. Let's have a look at them. This is their opening 5 for this year. Of course, Warrington on Thursday. Then they go to Hull. Then away to Saints. Then home to Wakey. And as we always say, Wakey have got a great record at Headingley. Don't know what it is with Wakey at Headingley, but every now and again they pull off a blinder. And Castleford away. Greg, how many points do you think Leeds will be on after 5 rounds?
I would like to say 6.
6. Who do you see them beating?
I think could very well. They're going to lose against us and Saints.
Right. Okay.
Hopefully.
So you think the other 3 are up for grabs?
Yeah. As I say, early doors. I'm hoping against hope that we will win on Thursday. I think by the time round 3 comes around, Saints will be back in. They'll probably be in the stride,
and that's at Saints as well. It is at Saints as well.
Saints as well. I think they're probably.
Home game.
Sorry to our Hull friends. I think they probably will be a little too strong for Hull at this stage of the season. Although, of course, it's Leeds, and they could have their
half a squad
number of injuries. as they usually do at this stage.
I actually think Leeds will be all right against Hull. I think Leeds, like you, I'm hoping against Hull that Warrington do it on Thursday, but I certainly see 6 points there. I think at home against 4 points. I actually think Hull, it's feasible for me that after 3 games Leeds could be without a point. But then I think once they get to Wakefield,
Hull gave their best performance of the season last year at Headingley against Leeds. Very early in the season, Hull came to Headingley and absolutely were outstanding. And I remember that game in particular because they actually made tons of ground after contact in the tackle. They of all the teams I watched last year, that game probably, and I've not got the stats in front of me, but I would imagine that Hull probably made more ground after contact than most of the teams did in most of the games last year. But they never played as well again, you know, under Brett Hodgson. And of course, Brett paid the price by the end of the year. So it was a bit sad. But Tony Smith, you know, obviously vastly experienced coach with them. And going back to Headingley, which was one of his great, you know, the great clubs, that's going to be a really fascinating game, isn't it?
It is, but all of this conundrum that they play well beginning of the season, and then they just, for whatever reason, they fade away towards the end of the season.
They do. They've got they lack mental strength to Hull, or they seem to. You know, they seem to give up when things are not going their way. They don't seem to have enough fight in them sometimes, and you know. But if they ever do get it together, I think they'll be very, very effective. And the interesting thing for them is knowing what the effect of losing Jake Connor will be, because you know, a lot of people pointed out, you know, what a great player Connor is, which of course he is immensely talented. But I'm never quite sure that his presence in that whole side was really conducive to a great team spirit. I could be wrong, but you know, perhaps it's one of those situations where a team loses a very good player, but nonetheless they play better without him. You know,
well, what's your thoughts on? I mean, whilst we're talking about Hull and Connor leaving, obviously, we were surprised. I think it was last week we looked at Man of Steel odds with Betfred, and both Tex Hoy and Jake Clifford very high in the pecking order for potential Man of Steel.
Well, that just goes back to our, you know, what we were saying earlier, doesn't it? You know, they're spine players, and spine players, you know, are the ones who are going to be in the Man of Steel running. You know, inevitably, I suppose. I mean, I think Jake Clifford is a very good player. I know far less about Tex Hoy than about Jake Clifford, but I've liked Jake Clifford for quite a long time, and I think he could be a really good signing for Hull. I mean, I liked Jake Clifford when he was at North Queensland. I liked him at Newcastle.
Remnants of Brodie Croft, doesn't he? I think Greg, you said it last week. It reminds you a little bit of Croft, doesn't he?
It does a bit. He's got similar characteristics, and you know, he could come and really be the catalyst that turns Hull from, you know, an ordinary team into genuine contenders. Absolutely.
And of course, in terms of fading away, if they can't get that together under Tony Smith, arguably for me one of the greatest coaches that Super League have ever had, quality coach Tony Smith, then I think then nobody can. Right, Greg, and the fans forum, as we do every week, where are Leeds going to finish, Greg, in the regular season?
I think Leeds are going to finish 6th.
You're going 6th. I'm going 5th. I'm putting them 5th. Fans forum, get involved. Where do you think Leeds are going to finish? Get it in the chat. I'll give you a couple of shout outs. But yeah, we're both saying that playoffs, Martyn, do you see Leeds in the playoffs?
I think they'll probably be about 5th. Yeah, I think that. You could never write Leeds off. And as I say, it's going to be really interesting this year because Rowan Smith has had a close season. So he's coming into the season, you know, fully prepared. I mean, if he could do what he did last season when he came in after I think it was about 7 or 8 games, you know, in theory at least, he ought to be able to achieve even more than that if he's, you know, you got the full close season behind him as well. So, you know, I'd hesitate to bet against Leeds too heavily, if I'm really honest about it.
Well, Leeds always seem to do the thing that they seem to struggle early doors, and then end of the season, they seem to get it together, and they're always there or thereabouts, Leeds, more often than not.
Well, if you remember that first game last year when they played Warrington, remember James Bentley got sent off the first half, and Leeds played with 12 men for much of the game. And so one thing that Rowan Smith has to do is to get James Bentley to become a far more disciplined player, because I think Bentley is a terrific prospect, but he just needs to stop giving away so many penalties, and particularly to stop being sin-binned and red carded, because they can't afford that. It's going to be a really competitive year this year, and any team that suffers from too many players being off the field at any one time, they're bound to suffer from it, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Go on, mate. Go on, Greg.
No, I was going to say I agree with Martyn totally. Bentley's a great talent. He just needs to learn to control himself.
He got better last year, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
At the back end, I mean, because even at Saints, his disciplinary record wasn't great. But I thought the back end of last season, he really stood up, and he started to let his rugby do the talking, as opposed to, maybe his mouth or maybe the odd silly challenge. So, look, James Bentley on his day, quality second rower. The fans forum, John Wilkinson says third for Leeds. Hi. Joel Scholes, our friend Joel, fifth. Alex Sharp saying he'll either third or fourth. Time will, of course, tell, but that's the Leeds Rhinos. Right, we'll move on to the Catalan Dragons. First of all, have to say, loving the away shirt.
Yeah.
Love that. That is a belting shirt, that. You've got to give them the due. That's probably one of the best shirts they've ever brought out. Home, traditional Catalan, but the away, congratulations.
Superb kit. Absolutely superb kit.
Right, let's take a look at the 2022 squad. And again, I mean, well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about Catalan now. Both centres. I mean, I used to like Dean Ware, I thought was a great player. Sammy Sonlange, of course, finally goes to Wakefield. Josh Drinkwater, of course, Warrington, Dudson, and, of course, Cassiano Warrington. Benjamin Julian allowed to leave. Dylan Napper, of course, went early there. And then, of course, Lacam and Koza, etc. If we look at this year, Catalan giving French players the head, bringing a couple of overseas players in. I mean, we're massive fans of Arthur Morg. Great player, probably deserves more minutes than he gets. Davis is class. Of course, they've lost Yaha for the season, but of course, Tom Johnson will be the beneficiary of that. Mathieu Laguerre last year was very, very solid when he came in. Mayett standoff, interesting. Mike, and of course, we'll look at Sia Takiako in a moment. We'll do a little bit on him. And of course, Adam Kieran as well. We'll have a little look at him in a moment in terms of some highlight reels. But if I may, I want to start the conversation on Catalan. We'll do the are they weaker, are they stronger? I personally think the weaker. But the one that really, really I want to talk about is Mike McMeekin. Massive, you know this, Greg. I'm a huge fan of Mike McMeekin.
Yeah.
He deputised brilliantly at prop last year, and he did. However, I think Mike McMeekin coming out of second row into prop, I think he's going to find it difficult at prop over the course of the season. I don't think he's built like some of the other props are. And I think they're going to lose so much on that right edge, because the amount of times he sets Davis up on that right edge and causes he's the one that creates the space for the centre and the winger to capitalise on. So not only do I think overall the squad is a lot weaker than it was last year, and they're probably in this transitional phase of bringing more French players in, etc. But to bring a player like Mike McMeekin out of second row and bang him in at prop, I get why they're doing it, but I think that's going to cause them massive problems.
Well, I'd be very surprised if he played at prop very much for them this year. I know he's got the number 8 shirt, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he will play in that position. I mean, they've obviously got other players who can play there. Obviously, Romain Navarrete, he's joined from Toulouse.
Good signing,
Manu Mao from Hull. And Taki Aho. I've never pronounced that name. But Siu Takeaho.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
Takeaho.
He's probably going to be in one of those in the front row there. And I hope Julian Busquets is fit for the year as well, because he missed a lot of last season, and he's been a mainstay of that team for quite some time now. I'm not quite sure. You see, the thing about them last year was that, in my opinion, they had one player who was a major disappointment, at least for me, and that was Mitchell Pearce. Mitchell Pearce arrived with a great reputation. I think he was, if I'm right in saying, at this time last year, I suspect he was probably the favourite or the joint favourite to become the Man of Steel.
I think you're right.
And he never quite lived up to that tag, did he?
No.
And it is harder coming in, as a halfback into a team where you're expected to come in and be an organizer for a group of players who don't know you, at least initially. It's not an easy job, but I don't think. I mean, he had one or two shining moments in the season, but I don't think they were frequent enough. And I'm not sure that his combination with Josh Drinkwater. I mean, I quite like Drinkwater, and I think Drinkwater's got a really great kicking game, and I think Drinkwater will combine well with George Williams at Warrington this year. So what we'll see from Tyrone May and Mitchell Pearce working together, I'm not quite sure. It may be brilliant, and I hope it is, because I've got an awful lot of empathy for the Catalans side, and I always like to see them doing well. I love the enthusiasm of their fans, even though it sometimes boils over a little bit occasionally. But I'd like to see them doing well. And you've mentioned Arthur Moore. I mean, the trouble with Catalans is they do have one or two players now who are getting to the veteran stage. I mean, they let one or two go at the end of the season, but there are still one or two others who are getting into that towards the mid-30s.
Yeah. McAlorum, Sam Tompkins, McAlorum.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
I'd like to see the Costa get a bit more game time for him, because again, he's another player that I think when he plays well.
I quite like Da Costa, actually. I think he's quite a good player, and there are quite a few other guys. I mean, I think the big loss from then this year was Joe Chan. The elder of the two Chan brothers, who's gone to Melbourne Storm. They've got the younger brother Tiaka Chan, if that's the way to pronounce it. I'd really like to see him hopefully coming to the fore as his brother did last year to really make an impact. And as you've already said, Tom Johnson's going to get his head this year, because we're going to have a vacancy on that left wing with Fuad Yahan being there. So it's going to be an interesting one for the Catalans this year. I really do hope that some of the French players can come through and claim starting places in their squad, because we really urgently need a lot of strong French players coming through, for the sake of the World Cup in 2025.
I think it's quite important that the French players start coming through.
Oh, no doubt about it. They've got to start really, bringing their own through. And funnily enough, if you remember towards the end of last season when they played at Wigan, they played virtually an entire reserve squad, nearly all French players. I think only one or two non-French players at most. And although they, Wigan ran up 40 points, I think, in the end, they actually looked quite promising, I thought. It wasn't a humiliating defeat by any means.
No. And a lot of those kids have been given shirts, haven't they? A lot of those kids have been.
And it's great to see. And, I hope that, by the end of the season, we'll know a few of those guys a lot better than we know them now.
Yeah. I agree with you, Martyn. I think they have weakened. I don't think they're as strong this year as they were last.
No, but
it's a transitional season.
Yeah.
It's a transitional season. This is Siasua Takiaho, who's come in, of course, from the Sydney Roosters. Back-to-back NRL Grand Final win, 169 NRL appearances. And as you've been listening to Martyn and Greg there, if you've been watching this highlight reel, great offload, powerful lad. To take Martyn's point, could be the man who actually starts at prop.
I think he will be starting prop. I think McGeechan will start in the second row.
He's a big. Well, I hope so, because I personally believe that's where Mike McMeekin does his best work.
Well, I agree with you, actually, Dave, that McMeekin is not a middle player; he's an edge player, and he's got great offloading skills. So, when you've got somebody like Tom Johnston, hopefully backing him up and just waiting for that ball coming out of the ruck. I think there could be a few tries there for Tom, and they'd be pretty spectacular ones as well.
Absolutely. And this is Adam Kieran, again, a Sydney Rooster, 26 NRL appearances, 8 tries and 44 goals as well. His time in the NRL. So obviously a very talented goal kicker. He's pretty much a utility player. He can play anywhere over the 3 quarters, and of course in the stand-off position. So again, the Tyrone May piece, the Mitchell Pearce, will he be in and around that? Probably more than likely going to be on the set in the centres though. But again, unknown quantity for many in this country. But he's a talent, and I'm sure he'll do well. Let's take a look at the opening 5 fixtures for the Catalan Dragons. Then they kick off at Wakey. Then they go to the Leopards, then away to Hull FC, then the Wigan Warriors, and then Hull KR. Greg, start with you. Catalan Dragons, first 5 games.
Yeah, this is a really tricky one, because as I say, I agree with Martyn that they're not as strong as they were last year, in my opinion. And this could go either way, depending on how they gel. Away to Wakefield, I think Wakefield are everybody's favourite to go down this year. Looking at the Sky pundits, this week have said Wakefield are their favourites to go down.
Gary Schofield has said they're the favourites to go down. We've said they're the favourites to go down.
Yeah. Does anybody ever say anything different though at the start of every season?
Yeah.
Wakefield are always the favourites to go down. But they've got remarkable staying power.
They have.
They have. I do think Lee will stay up though this year. I think they've got a good team. I would say maybe they'd be lucky to get 6, quite possibly realistically 4.
Well, I think they'll win their home games personally in those first 5 rounds, and I mean they could win at Wakefield, of course. Friday night. So they could potentially get 8 points from their first 10. I don't think they'll beat Wigan, obviously, but I certainly wouldn't write them off at and that game, if they play Lee in the second round, and the 2 Hull clubs also at home, those are all winnable games, as is at Wakefield on the opening weekend. So I think they'll get off to a reasonable start personally.
Well, I mean, Joel is going 8 out of 10, which I think is a very bold prediction. Steve Wilson's going 4. In terms of where they'll finish, I think Joel's putting them down at 8th. Quite a lot saying 8th. One, Alex Sharp saying 7th. So interested in that. For me, I'm going to be controversial here. I actually think that they will have. I think they'll get 4 points out of the first 5 games. I won't tell you why. But at this moment in time, anyway. At this moment in time, maybe when we get into the round 1 in a minute. But no, I'm giving it away. I actually think Wakey will turn them over at the weekend. I really do, because they've got a few injuries going into that game, Catalan. I think Wakey will turn them over. I think they'll beat Lee. I think Hull will turn them over. I think Hull FC will travel and turn them over. I think Wigan will win against them, and I think Hull KR at home might be the 4th point that they get. But I don't see any more than 4 for them. I have to say. Right, where are they going to finish, Greg?
I think 8th. I agree with most on the forum. I think 8th. I think too many players have left. Too many experienced seasoned players have left this year.
Yeah.
And I agree, Martyn. I think it's great to see so many French names coming through. I think if they can stay there or thereabouts and build for next season, they very well might be a force to be reckoned with again next season. But I think this is a transitional season where I think 8th is probably where they'll settle this year, I think. Hello?
Yeah, go on, mate. Yeah, we got you. Yeah, go on.
Sorry. I didn't realise you were talking to me.
I got sent you to sleep. I'm sorry. I do apologise.
No, it's fine, mate.
No, I think Catalans will probably be about 7th, just on the edge of the playoffs. But I'm not sure that they'll make it. But I think they'll be, stronger than some of the teams, in the bottom half of the table. But interestingly, I'm just looking at the odds this year, and Catalans are actually the 5th favourites according to Betfred at 10 to 1.
Well, they were 4th.
Betfred clearly think they're
2 weeks ago.
Sorry?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, Martyn, they were actually something. I think they were third or fourth favourites, so they are drifting each week. The Catalan, they're starting to drift.
Yeah, well, we'll learn a lot this Friday night.
But I've got them as ninth.
Ninth.
We will. I'm going to go ninth.
Okay.
Tracy Wilson. Tracy's gone ninth as well. So, right, we'll have to rattle through Warrington quick because we've still got the first round to do. Yeah, maybe having a good time. Right, Warrington Wolves, great. I mean, yeah, I really like the away, and the home is Warrington. It's a Warrington kit. Without question, the biggest turnaround of squads in the division. I mean, look at all the red from last year that have gone. Look at all the green that have come in. Really interesting to see how it goes. There's no doubt Warrington have gone big in the pack. Joe Philbin, of course, will add to that when he gets back from his injury. Great to see him giving Matty Nicholson, a young talent, the number 12, in there. It's a massive season for Warrington. There's no question about it. It was a disaster in 2022. But I was backing Darrell Clark all last year, Greg. You know that. I think it was needed at Warrington. It needed freshening up. They have freshened it up. Powell himself has said no excuses. You know, it's his team now. This is it. We need to get going. And you know, and I think, you know, even the likes of Drinkwater, I think very astute. Matty Russell, you know, we talked about that off air a couple of times. Matty Russell's an astute signing. He did really well in a Toulouse team last year. Great meters, you know, 14 tries last year. Sensible signing. It's help me out. I mean, first we'll play Paul Vaughan as we're talking. What's your thoughts?
It's a stronger pack.
Yeah.
They've brought a lot of youngsters into the squad, or Darrell Powell's brought a lot of youngsters into the squad, which I like. some debuted last year. Leon Hayes is going to be a talent now. He's going to be a talent in the future.
Yeah.
Personally, I would like to see Leon Hayes be given a chance this year, but obviously we brought Drinkwater in. I think it's more important for Powell that we start well than for Warrington that we start well.
Yeah, I agree.
If that makes sense. He needs Warrington to be firing on all cylinders.
I thought Vaughan against Lee. I mean, you know, again, we've been talking about the capturing of Vaughan and Maguire. Vaughan, for me, he's got a hell of an engine. I mean, I think he put something like 60-odd minutes in. Hard running, eager, willing. I mean, this guy on his day is world class. There's no question about that. He's
the crucial signing, isn't he? Because the Warrington pack did need strengthening, and it's very important that Paul Vaughan, you know, remains injury free. I think for Warrington to do well this year.
Yeah,
and it's a hell of a blow to them to have Josh Maguire suspended for 6 games. Obviously, they will probably appeal against that, but so who knows how that might ultimately come out.
Well, hopefully they get Morgan Knowles, his lawyer, and everything will be tickety-bee, Martyn. Well, that's quite controversial,
that's
isn't it?
certainly what they need to do. But you know, I think, you know, if Warrington are struggling, you know, I would say after 8 games they've got to be in the top half of the table if Darrell Powell is to feel confident that you know, the club is behind him. And you know, that's an interesting. It's a really interesting one. I mean, you've mentioned Matty Russell. Well, he won't be playing against Leeds because he's apparently gone down with an unspecified illness that shouldn't see him back the following week. You know, but the crucial thing for me is how their, you know, halfbacks combine. You know, Drinkwater and George Williams. George Williams took too much on himself last year. And Drinkwater is a pretty stable sort of a player, not particularly spectacular, but he's got a really good long kicking game, I think, as Drinkwater.
And a good organiser as well,
George, good organiser. He'll be the organiser, which gives Williams the freedom to sort of play what's in front of him. Williams, certainly when he was in Australia with Canberra, had probably the best short kicking game in the NRL near the opponent's line. Yeah. And I don't think that sort of showed itself fully for Warrington last year. And George needs to rediscover that particular skill. But if it works, you know, we talked about Man of Steel. I think George is a potential Man of Steel. If you know, if Warrington do well this year and get into the playoffs and do well in the playoffs, a lot of that will be down to the way that George Williams plays, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And
100%.
that could put him right into contention. You know,
I think
totally
probably the
agree.
problem at Warrington with Williams was there was a battle of wills between him and Widdop as who was the top dog.
yes, yeah, that's often the case, isn't it? When you get two big players like that, and you know, obviously with it no longer being there, that problem is overcome. And Drinkwater doesn't seem to have the same ego that Widdop had. I don't think. You know, who knows? Could be wrong, but we'll see how that turns out. But I think that's crucial. And you know, Darryl Clark. I mean, you look at the spine of Warrington, and it looks pretty good to me.
Duffy. Yeah, Duffy for me looked a player last year for what in a Warrington shirt.
Well, I've always been excited by Matt Duffy. You know, I thought I used to love watching him play for St George, and I was a bit surprised when, you know, he you know, was no longer wanted by that club. And so I think that's going to be really interesting. And you know, we need Darryl Clark to perform well again, and he's certainly capable of doing that.
And Danny Walker coming off the bench.
Well, Danny Walker's a real fine player.
Walker.
And
He's a good player, Danny Walker.
The other kid who we've not mentioned is Riley Dean, who's looking good for Featherstone at the moment.
Featherstone, yeah. Man of the match, wasn't he?
And Darryl was saying today that he can recall Riley, you know, at any time. So, you know, I thought Riley Dean had a great game at Keighley last week, and
he did.
I didn't see his game against Halifax, but you know, by all accounts, he's been playing extremely well for Featherstone.
Yeah, I think Riley Dean needs game time under his belt. Again, him and Liam Hayes hopefully are the future halfback combination for Warrington.
Well, again, but Powell has said that, hasn't he? Powell has said that, you know, he does see in the long term the production line of kids will start to take very much in the same spirit of Leeds, Wigan and Saints, bringing the kids through. He sees that. So I think once the likes of certainly Drinkwater, which is probably going to be a few seasons, it's going to be interesting to see what the other side of that looks like, because that's either is going to come to fruition that the kids are going to come through, or Warrington are going to continue to spend big and you know, how many, I mean, we've said how many academy players have turned up somewhere else, Greg, and been world beaters.
Now is the time, and I think that's probably Darryl Powell's biggest strength. Now is the time he has to start bringing these young kids through. And,
I mean, let's take up these.
Probably the right guy to do it.
Absolutely. Sorry, mate. So these opening five then for Warrington. Leeds, of course, on Thursday. Then away to Huddersfield. That's a mouth-watering prospect. Then home to Salford, another great game. Then Hull KR away. And then, of course, we welcome the newly promoted Leopards at the fifth game. Right, same again. Greg, how many points after 5 for the Wire?
I'd love to say 10.
Okay.
I think, if I'm being realistic, I think Huddersfield. I think Huddersfield are strong this season. I think we could lose there.
But don't forget, Huddersfield won't have had a game in week
one. True. So it's a good
time to play them. If you're going to play them, you might as well play them when they've not had a game and you've had a game.
Particularly when I think a lot maybe depend on how we've gone against Leeds in that as well.
Yeah.
If they beat Leeds, they'll go into that with confidence, won't they?
Yeah. There's the potential for 10 points there, and that would be a dream for Warrington fans, wouldn't it? You know,
it would be.
But they could.
I think Darryl Powell takes 6. I think Powell would take 6. I think 8 will be very nice. But like you say, you know,
who do you think they won't beat?
I think on the day, looking at Warrington's squad, you know, that squad should be competitive against every single one of those teams. I think, you know, we talked last week, Martyn, about Salford, and, you know, Salford this year, they're starting from scratch. They've got momentum, and that momentum took them there last year. They're starting from scratch. So, you know, and it's the same with all teams. If Warrington get off to a flyer against Leeds, and then, as you say, if they were to go to Huddersfield, sorry, Joel's about to kick in here. If they did go to Huddersfield, he'll be kicking off in a minute in the chat. But if we get to Huddersfield and then we turn Huddersfield over and we're 4 from 4, all of a sudden, 2022 is a distant memory. There's 2 games of momentum there, and who knows?
But we were 2 from 2 last year, Dave.
But it was a different squad, mate, and there was obviously bad rumblings in the squad, mate. There was a bad culture in that squad last year. New team, new beginning. But if we're 4 from 4 after 2, momentum. If we lose to Leeds and lose to Huddersfield, going back to Martyn's point, all of a sudden, Powell and the squad is right back where they were in 2022 in terms of pressure.
Yeah. But interestingly enough, if you look at the odds, Warrington are 8-1 with
Correct.
joint third favourites with Leeds, which is a remarkable thing when you think about the fact that they finished 11th last year. And maybe Betfred knows something that we don't know, because they clearly rate Warrington very highly. And in contrast, Salford, you've just been talking about, a 33-1.
I know.
After last year, Salford, they've retained most of the same players, with very few exceptions,
Martyn, isn't it?
They've got a pre-season, and yet they're relegated to 9th favourites. That doesn't seem logical to me, but I'm not a bookmaker, so maybe they do know something that we don't.
I think with Salford, I mean, again, we were talking about this last week. I think the thing with Salford for me is the strength in depth.
Yeah.
If they pick up some big injuries, they haven't got the depth of the other squads. And I think that's probably why, because law of averages in rugby league, you're going to be picking up some injuries along the way. That might be it. But if they can stay injury free, I think they're incredibly generous odds that Salford have been given.
Going back to my predictions, Warrington often come gift wrapped when they welcome Salford at Halliwell Jones. The amount of times Salford have beaten us at Halliwell Jones over the years is incredible. I'd love to say 10. I think realistically it could very well be 8.
Right. So where are they going to finish? Where are they going to finish in the league for the season, mate?
4th.
In the regular season, 4th?
4th.
I've got them as 4th. Where do you think, Martyn?
I'd say 6th. I'm not quite as confident as you are, but
fair enough.
But we all seem to think that they're going to finish in the playoff position. So, hopefully, that.
And the chat is agreeing.
Yeah,
the chat is agreeing. It ranges from 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So they're all over the place, Warrington, in these predictions. I have to say hello to my little mate Sam. Little Sam's watching again. Say hello to Sam as I do every week, Greg. He's there, he's watching, the young man. Good to see him. And very, very quickly, where Martyn just was a minute ago, these were the odds. I think it was yesterday I took these odds. Saints favourite. Warrington for the League Leaders Shield, 7-1 as a lead. Then Catalan out to 8-1. I think the Giants are very generous at 10-1. I think the Giants are going to be in the mixer as well, especially League Leaders Shield wise. And then it's the same running order for the actual grand final winners. Again, look at the Giants there, 12-1 for the Huddersfield Giants. That for me is great value, and I'm not an Huddersfield fan. I think they're outsiders for the Challenge Cup. They're outsiders for the grand final. If I was a Hull fan, not that I'm a betting man, but a £10 each way for grand final and for Challenge Cup, you know what? I think you'll get your money back, and actually, you never know. You might be laughing, but they're the odds. No real surprises.
No,
in those.
Apart from Catalan being above Huddersfield.
Yeah, I found that shocking.
I think Salford being at 33-1, they're that's not very. That seems too pessimistic to me. And Warrington being 8-1 seems a little bit too optimistic. So, for example, Warrington 8-1, Huddersfield 12-1. That doesn't look that realistic to me. But you never know.
Say what you feel, Martyn. You're amongst friends here. Say what you feel.
You're not coming back.
And Hull at 16-1, I don't think looks a bad bet.
No, it's not.
Castleford, on the other hand, at 16-1, I'm not sure. I'm not certain about Castleford this year. Now they've had the trouble that they've had this week. I think that's going to be a difficult thing for them on Sunday. I don't know.
Yeah.
I believe they're going to play Joe Westerman.
He's going to come in for some stick, then, isn't he?
What sort of reception he's going to get? I suppose it's there's not much doubt he's going to get some stick. Whether he can overcome that, I mean, it's we'll certainly learn a bit about him, won't we? And I should think Sky must be regretting now that game's not on TV, because I think it would have got a massive audience, to be honest, with a lot of people who are not necessarily rugby league fans tuning in to see what's going on. But we'll see. And obviously Joe's apologised for being such an idiot, really, which he was, of course.
I mean, my take on this. Yeah, my take on the Joe Westerman affair is that really it's a private matter between him and his family. Yes, he's brought the club in. He's brought the club into this disrepute. I get that. It is a rugby league story, of course it is. But for me, it's a private issue. He's been a silly boy, and over to him and his family, really.
No, character-wise, though, we are talking about the guy who put his dislocated knee back in place and carried on playing.
Oh, mate,
that's the kind of
mate, and there was no better loose forward. We said last year for us he was the loose forward of the year, and
by a million miles, yeah.
And for me personally, from a man management perspective, if I'm Lee Radford, I'm not playing him this weekend. His head cannot be right going into this weekend. No. And it's a team game, it's a team sport. You want your players fully focused, and no man could go into that game fully focused on rugby. It can't happen. So I would hope that sense prevails and they allow him a week to just get his head right, because I think there's more personal matters that he probably needs to go and sort out than at this moment in time. Again,
it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because Lee Radford hasn't yet had his pre-match press conference this week, and I'm not quite sure when and if that's going to happen. But obviously, he will come in for a lot of questions on that issue. And I think you might be right, actually, Dave, that it might be sensible to let Joe look to his family situation this weekend, rather than worrying about trying to beat Hull. But we'll see whether that's the case. I mean, he might actually want to get out onto the field and put it all behind him by doing what he does best.
Yeah,
we shall.
In a case like that, do you let the player make a decision, or do you make the decision for him? It's a difficult one, isn't it?
Well, the coach is the closest guy to his player, isn't he? In making that decision, so he will make that judgment, and I've no doubt. I mean, I do speak to Lee Radford an awful lot, and I do trust his judgment. So, I think Lee is a very is a pretty shrewd guy, really. And I don't think whatever he decides to do, I think he'll do it with Joe Westerman's best interests in mind.
Let's hope so. Yeah, so let's rattle through. Let's rattle through very, very quickly. We've done a lot of talking, and as we've been going through those three squads, we have talked about a lot of these other squads anyway. So we should be able to rattle through round number one. We kick off, of course, at the Halliwell Jones this Thursday night. The Warrington Wolves taking on the Leeds Rhinos. We've just heard Josh Maguire out. Gil Dudson is out. Joe Philbin, of course, and Conor Renge. Joe on the way back. Conor Renge probably back end of the season. He'll be back. For the Leeds Rhinos, problems at centre. No Harry Newman. He's still out with a hamstring problem. Nene McDonald expecting not to play either. Massive blow for them in the pack. Haledski not there as well. Of course, bad news for Max Simpson, who's out for the season as well. Yeah. And there's also a doubt over James Bentley, who we spoke about earlier on. So we're up against Gary. Let your mate Gary Schofield know this. This year we've included Gary in our prediction league, so we will be taking Gary's predictions out of the League Express every week and pitting his wits against me, Greg, and the fans forum. So what we do at this point in the show every week is we predict who we think is going to win. If we get the right team, we get 2 points. If we get the right team and margin, we get 5 points. And at the end of the season, of course, the winners will be last year the fans forum, who wrote every week on the fans forum page for their prediction. And of course, we do the average. They won. They beat me and Greg last year. And they'll be looking to retain their title. So let's go around the room. Fans forum members, get on the chat. Who is going to win at the Halliwell Jones? Greg, what's your prediction? Who's winning and by what margin?
Oh, this is a heart overhead moment for me. I think Warrington probably will win.
By what margin?
I think they're probably going to win 9-17.
Okay, so for Martyn's benefits, it's of course the first time he's been with us. We do 1-8, 9-17, or 18 plus. Those are the brackets to make it really simple. Yeah. I've gone 9-17. The fans. I think it'll
be a really close game actually, and I think Warrington by 1-8 in that case.
1-8 for Martyn. Gary Schofield has gone 9-17. I've gone 9-17. The fans forum agree with Martyn. They've gone 1-8 in favour of the Wire. All four predicting Warrington, which of course will mean that Leeds will win. Right, okay, but no, absolutely, we're there. Right then, now, if we may, we're just going to take a little break because we've got to do this. This year, we're going to pick a game of the week every week. And this week, we believe at Super League Raw, this is the game of the week. The newly promoted Leeds Leopards, who have absolutely gone huge to make sure they get a sellout crowd. Big occasion for them at Leeds this week. Of course, taking on last year's flamboyant Salford Red Devils. We talked about momentum. Salford will want to show right from the get-go that they're right back in the groove in 2023. And of course, Leeds will want to put a marker down that they can retain their Super League credentials in 2024. This, for me, is going to be one hell of a spectacle. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. And I'm really looking forward to it as a neutral. Greg, over to you first. Then we'll go to Martyn. How do you see it? Who's going to win this one?
Do you know what? I really think Leeds might do this.
Yeah.
They'll be buoyed by a home crowd. I think they put in quite a good performance against us the other week. First half, certainly they matched us, if not bettered us. And I'm going to go Leeds. And I'm going to go 9-17 Leeds.
You're going 9-17 Leeds.
Yeah, I think when they were in Super League a couple of years ago, I think they ran Wigan really close in their first game. I think they only lost in the dying seconds by 2 points.
I think they ran. I think that in
we're 18-0 up, if I remember.
Yeah, there was a couple of because we were saying it, on this show. We were saying all through 2021 how many games Leeds really pushed. If you remember, in 2021, they actually seemed to play a lot better against Wigan, the Saints, the Warringtons than they did the teams that really they need to beat to stay up. But I mean, this is a completely different league. Completely different.
And I think they'll win. I think Leeds will win this one.
Lachlan Lamb was impressive at Warrington.
Very impressive.
Lachlan Lamb, I really like the look of Lachlan Lamb. Of course, in Pape, loads of pressure on him. But what you could see the glimpses, he's going to be a player. Low bags of experience, Super League pedigree banged into that squad. I think for both sides, as a neutral, it's going to be really interesting to see both teams, and we'll get a real good flavour about how maybe their seasons are going to. I mean, it's only game one, but I think for Leeds, this is a big game, and it'll be interesting to see. So you're going Leeds. Martyn, what's your thoughts on this one?
I think I would have to go with Salford, because I think Salford, they were slow starters last year, but the difference this year is that they're not in completely new squad. They've retained, their key creative players in the same positions. They're all fit to go, as far as I'm aware. And I think, I can certainly imagine Lee coming into the game really fired up, and I think they'll really give Salford a good game. But they are coming up in standard. They've been playing Championship rugby last year, winning very easily, as Keighley did in League One, and we saw Keighley's first game in the Championship recently, and it's a shock to the system to suddenly be playing at a higher level. I think Salford will win.
They went well against us though, Martyn, in the testimonial. Ben Curry, they went really well in that game, I thought.
Oh yeah, but those are pre-season games, and I'm never sure that you can read a great deal into pre-season games. I could be wrong. But I just think Salford, I think Paul Rowley is a very, very astute coach. And I think, they might just have a bit too much for Lee on the night. But I think it's going to be a great night, and we'll have scouting for girls playing before the game and at half time and so on. There's lots of other things going to be going on there. I think it's a game that actually should attract a terrific crowd of fans of both teams. I think Salford will take quite a lot of fans there, and I'd love to see maybe a few fans coming from St Helens, because they don't have a game in England this weekend, and the night before their World Cup challenge. If you're a Saints fan and you're watching this, get your mates to go to Leon Friday night. I don't think you'll regret it. I think Lee are going all out. I know Derek Beaumont is an incredibly enthusiastic guy, and he's not afraid to put his hand into his pocket. Is not afraid to put his mouth into gear. To shout the odds for the game. He's very emotionally attached to the League club. I think it's going to be a fantastic night, and I think people ought to come from far and wide to see this game. I really hope. I'd love to see, this game sell out. I don't know whether it's anywhere near to doing that yet, but I really would love to see a full stadium for this game. It would be fantastic, I think.
Really great. Absolutely. Well, here's one for you, right? Talk about split decisions. So I'm going Salford 0-8. I just hope it's a really close game. The fans forum are going Lee 0-8. No, sorry, 1-8, should I say. I'm going Salford 1-8. Greg, you've of course gone Lee. Did you say Lee 90-17?
90-17, yeah.
And Gary Schofield has gone Salford 90-17. So who knows who's going to be right? But one of us is going to be right, unless it's 18 plus to one of them. But like I say, hopefully. Great spectacle. Really looking forward to it. It's our game of the week. Sky Sports, 7:30, Friday night. Get a curry, get some beers. As Martyn said, if you're close to the ground, get yourself down there, and let's hope it's a real good spectacle. Fantastic. Right. Same evening, we had a little chat about this a minute ago, of course, and that was the game Wakefield against Catalan.
Yeah. This is the one that again, this is a difficult one to call because as Martyn said, Wakefield, the perennial favourites to go down.
Well, let me just help you out. Because let me tell you, maybe missing. So Liam Hood is expected to miss it at hooker for Wakey, and Jodie Crowther as well. Yeah. But here's the big. But Catalan, no McMeekin, no Tyrone May, no Yaha. And there's going to be late checks on Busquet and on Kieran. So, that for me is interesting.
Hey? It's Proctor's in the squad, isn't he?
Proctor's in the squad, yeah.
He could be the difference, Proctor. He's class.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to go Wakefield.
By what margin?
By 1-8.
1-8. I've gone exactly the same way. Gary Schofield's gone Catalan 1-8, and the fans forum have gone Catalan 9-17. So we're going Wakey. Fans forum and Gary are going to Catalan. It's over to you, Martyn. You've got the casting vote. Which team's going to win this one?
Well, I think Wakefield will win because for various. I mean, partly because of some of the players who won't be playing for Catalans who you've just mentioned, but also I think the Catalans. Because of the World Cup, I don't think the Catalans have had as full a pre-season as they would have liked to have had. A lot of players came back late from the World Cup, and I think it disrupted their preparations. They've not had that much of a pre-season, so I think they might start slowly. And Wakefield, I think, are going to be really up for this game. Mark Applegarth, new coach. A lot of people are saying a lot of very good things about Mark Applegarth. In fact, I've heard a few people comparing him to Matty Peat, which is, given Matty's performance last year, is quite a compliment, I think. When you look at Wakefield's potential starting 17 or starting 13 and, match day 17, I don't think it's a bad squad, as bad as some people suggest. And I think that Renu Fatoni's looked fairly useful in pre-season as well. I think Wakefield could, pull off a shock here, and I'd back them from 1-8. I think.
Fantastic. Well, Joel Scholes agrees. He's gone Wakey 10. I don't know if we mentioned the predictions from some of the guys who are watching for the other games. Andy and Sue, Castleford fans, see Lee winning that one against Salford. Joel going Salford. John Wilkinson going Lee. Steve Wilson going Lee. And Dave Kelly just started watching us. Good evening, Dave. How are you, sir? Good to see you joining us. So yes, massive game there. Now, very, very quickly, not Super League, but what a match this is going to be. Saturday morning on Sky. The kickoff has been delayed. 10-8 now, British time, will be the kickoff of the World Club Challenge. I think, Martyn, I think you said it in your column. Saints fans, hold your horses. It was an understrength St. George side. Don't get me wrong, it was an entertaining game. It was a good game. And actually, I mean, it looked like you were going to absolutely steamroll St. George after about 10 or 15 minutes because Saints got off like a house on fire. But this is a completely different proposition that's coming on Saturday morning. Completely different. Hopefully, it's a really good arm wrestle for both sides of the hemisphere. I can't see Saints winning this. If I put my British hat on, and for the good of our game and for the profile of our game, I wouldn't mind Saints winning it for that reason, because they're flying the flag for England at the end of the day. But that's heart stuff. The head, I've watched Penrith over the last 2 years. They have been absolutely unbelievable. And Saints are going to come up against a juggernaut on Saturday morning. I can't see them doing it. I don't really want to predict the score. I just hope it's close, but I do see a Penrith win. Greg, your thoughts? World Club Challenge?
Yeah, I think we need St Helens to put up a good performance for rugby league in this country.
Yeah.
I hope that it's close, but I think it may well be for the first 50 minutes, and then I think Penrith may well run away with it. Again, I'm not going to predict a score. I just hope St Helens put a good account in. I agree. And I really, really hope, and I never ever thought I'd say this, but I really, really hope that Saints don't get smashed off the park. I hope they put a real good performance in. And you know what? I think they might do. I think they might surprise a few people, Saints. I think they've been encouraged by that performance against St George. Yeah, they had a few trialists in there. And I think at the end of the day, Penrith will prove too strong, but I really do hope by not too much for the British.
Well, I think for me, Saints' chances actually rest on probably Wellesby, Lomax. It's great to see Lewis Dodd back. I saw him in pre-season. He was brilliant against St George at the weekend. I mean, that's like a new signing for Saints going into the season. And the one that I was really pleased for was T. Ritson. Here's a kid that's come up from the Championship. He played against St George at the weekend, scored his try. Really pleased for him, and hopefully, that's a start of big things for. I think
he could be the surprise package of the season.
He could be because he's lightning quick. I mean, Martyn mentioned it's a different proposition stepping up from Championship to Super League, but for an opener for 10, his cameo there at St George. He's not going to be phased. He's a confident young man, and let's hope he has a good season. Martyn, what's your thoughts on the World Club Challenge?
Well, I'm a bit more optimistic than you two are, I think, because, but I think what Saints have to do, it was very noticeable. I mean, Saints came out of the sheds against St George and scored 2 very early tries, and they were really well organised and determined right at the start of that game. What then happened was that St George came back into it when Saints made a couple of mistakes. There was a drop ball from Mark Percival that St George scored from a couple of tackles later, and Johnny Lomax didn't have his best game. He made 1 or 2 errors that were uncharacteristic, and he had
a poor game, didn't he? Lomax didn't see himself in that game, did he?
No, and hopefully that was just a one-off, and this week he'll show what he's really made of. They're going to have Morgan Knowles back in the side. Who obviously Morgan was missing against St George, and you look at the Saints squad, and it's really competitive. I mean, we know it's competitive. They have been for so many years. The Penrith players, quite a few of their big name players were missing from at the weekend. So this is going to be the first game that they will have played. Nathan Cleary, for example, wasn't there last weekend, and that's an interesting conundrum, I think, because will they, is it too early for Nathan Cleary? I mean, lot of people say Nathan Cleary is the best player in the world. I'm not sure he showed that in the World Cup, particularly in the earlier games. But
I'm not in that camp. I think Cleary is a talent, Martyn, but I won't bestow him that honour.
Well, that's right. But the Australians themselves love nothing more than to build themselves up, and I even read somewhere or heard somewhere that somebody was saying they'd win by 50 points. There was they've got such scorn for Super League of the Australians that I think if St Helens can cut out the mistakes that they made against St George, and that's a big if, isn't it? Because we saw in the in the World Cup semi-final, you make crucial mistakes at crucial times and you don't win games. So Saints have got to cut those out. But I think they've got a chance of winning this game, and I'll stick my neck out and say they'll win by 1-8, I think, because I think
fantastic.
I think Penrith will be underprepared, and I think they'll underestimate St Helens, and I think James Roby, his leadership I thought was fantastic at the weekend.
I agree.
And I expect him to do the same thing again. I mean, quite a few Australians have said to me, oh, bloody hell, 37 years old, how on earth, so what a poor competition yours must be if a bloke's captaining the top side and he's 37. But James Roby is a totally exceptional human being. His fitness is quite incredible. He's got such aerobic capacity, and I think he'll be exceptionally determined to win this game for St Helens. And I think Paul Wellens will be, as a coach, I think Paul will be incredibly well prepared. I don't think they'll leave any stone unturned, and I'm backing them to win this game. And I'm prepared to stick my neck out and look foolish if they don't. But I think we look up to Australian Rugby League, and in some respects quite rightly. But I think Saints have got what it takes to win.
Super.
Well, Martyn, just quickly, what do you think the effect the heat will have on them?
Well, I mean, there's talk about it being a game of 4 quarters now, isn't there? I think that's going to happen. So I don't know. I think, as Paul Wellens said, they have played in hot conditions previously. It's not going to be entirely new to them. They've played in hot conditions in the south of France, and even in England last year, there were 1 or 2 days that were pretty roasting. So I think they'll cope with it, and I don't think they'll be looking to make that an excuse. Put it that way.
Well, I have to say, Martyn, there's another thing here that and I know that you're very passionate about it, and a lot of DWB journalists are very, very passionate about it. If ever there was a chance that the international calendar would get sparked at the end of this season, a Saints win against Penrith might just get the Australians thinking, hang on a minute, we've got a score to settle here, because it would really upset them. It would absolutely upset them if Saints, and especially if Saints went and won the 100 grand, that would really upset
be marvellous, wouldn't it?
It would upset them.
I wouldn't necessarily go that far. I don't think they'll score 5 tries. I think the
referee will be having a bit of a word in his ear if that was looking like that.
That's very optimistic. But to win this game, I think it's possible. It's not certain by any means, but I'm backing Saints.
Having said that,
fabulous.
Having said that, though, if Ashley Klein is the referee, then Saints might have a chance.
Well, who knows? I don't.
Who knows?
I tend not to differentiate between referees.
That was a joke, by the way.
Don't worry.
Right.
But you know what I mean. Whoever the referee is, they've got to handle him.
Yeah, exactly.
we come to the live game on Channel 4, 12:30 start, 1 o'clock kickoff this Saturday after the World Club Challenge. Just enough time to either replenish your pint, make a brew, get your bacon butty, whatever you're going to do, and then sit down and watch this game. Hull KR, of course, Willie Peters' first home game in front of let's be fair, will be a partisan crowd there at Hull KR, taking on Wigan. Now, Wigan and with the exception of Iden, who's expected to be out for Hull KR, both teams expected to be fully fit going into this game. So interesting. I've gone Wigan. Gary Schofield's gone Wigan. The fans forum's gone Wigan. Gary's gone one to away. I actually think 9-17 Wigan. The fans forum are saying 18 plus Wigan, which is incredible, really. Greg, where are you seeing this? Hull KR Wigan?
I'm going to be fairly to the point. Wigan 18 plus.
That's a big score. Martyn, over to you.
Well, I was over at Wigan a week or two ago, meeting the players and watching them train and watching video sessions and speaking to Matty Pete. And I've got to say, I was incredibly impressed by them. The quality of the squad, the quality of them as human beings. They were all great people who were in the Wigan squad this year. And Matty Pete did a great job last year. And I think they will be too strong for Hull KR. Hull KR have got a new coach, and I'm sure he'll do a very good job in the end. But this will be the first game, the first official game after the pre-season. And I think he just might find that Wigan have just got too much pace and power on Saturday. And I'd go from 9-17 a Wigan win.
Yeah, 1917. Yeah, I mean, Wigan last year's entertainers. I think, like we said earlier, I think they're back. I think they're three quarters, and that the pace now. I mean,
frightening.
It is. I mean, King can get anywhere near back to his best. Wardle's a quality centre. We know that. I agree with what you said earlier on, Martyn. Because of French and Field, Marshall was overlooked a little bit in how well Marshall played for Wigan last year. Yeah. Marshall was very, very good for Wigan last year, and even though I don't think their pack is maybe as good as Saints, Warrington, certainly those two. I don't think it's as good. They've just got strike all across that back line. I mean, Salford last year, I think it was on Channel 4, where they nearly picked him, and then all of a sudden, Field and French, bang, gone. And now they've got King and Wardle as well. Ouch. I mean,
formidable, I think.
Yeah.
I think they're the big challenge of the Saints.
Well, we've put them down as our League Leaders Shield winners, both Greg and I. You went Wigan top, didn't you, Greg?
I went Wigan top. I got Wigan as League Shield.
I've gone Wigan top. Grand final, we'll get a prediction on that before we close tonight, but we've got them as League Leaders this year. Right, okay, fans forum also going the same way, Wigan on that one. And then we come to the final game of the weekend. We're almost there. It's been a great night. A bit longer. It's our longest ever show, this, Martyn. But,
right.
But all I would say is,
when we've got
royalty, we just go with the flow. I could listen to you all. I could listen to you all day. Right, Hull FC, Castleford Tigers. Let's look at this. Right, so just to help you out here, Truman out, Connor Wynn out. Willie, come on, Greg, help me out. Go on.
Yeah, him.
You can do it.
Willie.
I can't.
Yeah, Willie's out.
Willie's out. He's out. And there's. But actually, also, which I think a big for Hull, just to draw this into your mindset going into it, there's going to be late assessments, I believe, for Tumavari, who's a great player, and Savelio, and Legion South. So those three players, I mean, they're big players for Hull: Tumavari, Savelio, and Legion South. At this moment in time, not 100%. As for Castleford, we know Danny Richardson's out for the start of the season, and if I'm a betting man, I think there's a big question mark over Joe Westerman this weekend. Hull, obviously, that spine that we talked about, Tex Hoy is in there. We've got, of course, Jake Clifford. Brad Dwyer's been thrown into the mix as well. Obviously, Lee Gaskell's there, isn't he? Is it Lee Gaskell?
No, Lee Gaskell's at Wakefield.
Who's the other one? I'm missing one. Who's the deputy at halfback for Hull this year? Oh,
Ben McNamara.
Yes, Ben McNamara, that's the one. Yeah, so obviously Ben McNamara possibly going to be brought in maybe for Truman, who knows. Hull. Fans Forum have gone 9-17, Hull. As has Gary, as have I. So, Greg, are you going to be different or where do you see it?
I said, I think our first show, it was, that Castleford's season depends on that Widdott-Miller combination.
Yeah.
And I think if they can fire straight away, I think Castleford have got a good chance. And I am gonna, because Hull have got quite a few new combinations. So I am going to be controversial, and I'm going to say Cast by 1-8.
So you're going against the grain.
I'm going Cast.
Joel is agreeing with you. He's going Cast 1-8. Andy and Sue, of course, Cast fans. They're going Cast by 7. Martyn, where do you see it?
Well, I see Hull winning by 9-17 because, I mean, Cast have got quite a few new combinations in this squad, in particular at halfback with Widdop and Miller. Widdop, I think, has got quite a bit to prove now. He's got to show that he can still do it. He's reaching the veteran stage. He's immensely talented, but eventually age does catch up with you, and hopefully it's not done with him. Jacob Miller, I really rate Jacob Miller very highly. I thought he's a great capture from Wakefield. I mean, Jake Truman, was great for Castleford, but sadly got injured and missed virtually the whole of last season. But I think Hull, under Tony Smith, I think they'll really be up for this game. And, we all wait to see whether Joe Westerman plays. If he does, the Hull fans will be on his back straight away. And probably Castleford fans as well, possibly. So that's a major decision. It reminds me a little bit, actually, of when Castleford were in the 2017 grand final, and in the week leading up to it, Hardacre had that cocaine problem that kept him out of the game. And in a similar way, Joe, it's obviously not drugs this time, but it's it's something quite different. But
it's Greg's, not drugs.
It could have the same effect, unfortunately.
Well, Lee Radford always come. You're look, everybody, Martyn, in rugby league. Me and Greg certainly don't. But Lee Radford, from the outside looking in, doesn't strike me as somebody who'll be very impressed about this so close to a new season.
No, I wouldn't think so. Lee is a very down to earth guy, and I'd be very surprised if he hasn't had a few words, fairly strong words. But
I'm sure he has.
I think Lee is a great guy as well, and I'd love to see Cass do well, because I really do like Lee Radford as a bloke. I think he's a real genuine rugby league guy through and through. And but I just think Hull might just have too much for them this weekend. And as I say, I'd go 9-17 for Hull in this case.
Fabulous. Right, let's do very, very quickly. Greg, grand final winners 2023. I'm going to capture this. Who are you going with? Grand final winners.
I'm going Saints.
You're going Saints.
Yeah.
If you permit me, I'm going to do what John Wells did. So John Wells, when asked, we posted it on our chat today. Can't remember.
He went on and on, didn't he?
He went. I think was it shining like a player of the season.
He did about 16
pick 4. Pick 4 as opposed to 1. If you permit me, and you'll know where I'm going with this. Rather than predict the winner, I'm gonna, if you allow me, I'm gonna say new name on the trophy. Don't know which one, but I think this could be the season that a new name. I think Wigan will win the league leaders' shield. I think over the course of the season they will be the most consistent.
I think Wigan will.
Playoff rugby league is it's a lottery. I'm going to stick my neck out and I'm going to say this is the season a new name goes on the trophy.
If you pushed me, I'd say a Saints Huddersfield final.
Yeah. So are you going to permit me that new name on the trophy?
Yeah, I'll give you
a bold prediction.
I'll give you
it's
that
a
one.
Bold prediction, that. But that's what I'm going to go new name. I don't know which one. I think Huddersfield are in with a shout. If Warrington click, could be in with a shout. And there's a massive question. I mean, I put all down the pecking order. Massive question mark overall. I mean, I used to say Hull couldn't spring a surprise just for Steve and Tracy there. So I'm going to go new name on the trophy. Martyn, your thoughts? Grand final winners before we close?
Well, a lot depends on injuries in rugby league, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Who's going to be lucky with injuries and who's going to be unlucky. But I think on the assumption that everybody is lucky and most teams can retain the squads that they start the season with, I think Wigan are in with a chance of upsetting Saints. I don't think it's going to be a new name on the trophy, but I think it could be
Wigan on my own
this year. Yeah,
as usual, David.
I just think Wigan, they won the cup in 2022, and I think it could be their year to win the grand final. But I'm not guaranteeing that, and Saints fans will probably shoot me if I dare show my face in St Helens. But I think it's going to be a great year, and St Helens will be incredibly competitive. But I think we could have a Wigan Saints grand final this year, and that really would be something to savour.
Well, all I know is between now and between then, we are going to be treated to the greatest game on earth. I cannot wait. Last year, I thought the standard was brilliant. We saw some incredible tries. We've looked at all the squads over the last 3 weeks. It looks great on paper. Let's hope that these tremendous athletes that we watch every week put on a great spectacle, and I'm sure they will. I just cannot wait for kickoff next Thursday, and away we go. Before we close, guys, these are the games this weekend. Warrington, of course. Then we've got Leopards, Salford on Friday. Don't forget Friday morning. Get them all. Get them all on your Sky remote. Get them all recorded. Do what Martyn does. Do what I do. Watch them during the week. Better than watching Bake Off, innit? Whatever else you might watch. Get one of these games on. Dragons, Rabbitohs, Night Seals, Roosters, Seagulls on Friday. Then Saturday, we've got Tigers, Raiders before the World Club Challenge. Not sure what they're doing. I don't know if you've heard anything, Martyn. I don't know if they're now delaying the Broncos Cowboys game as a consequence of the World Club Challenge, or if that's
I think they are. I think they will be. Yeah, I think
they're going to delay that.
Yes, I mean they show every game. So if they're putting the kickoff back by 50 minutes in one game, they've got to do it with the next game.
Brilliant. So that means that we'll be able to watch that one as well. Of course, Wigan at Hull KR also Saturday afternoon. Then, of course, it's Warriors Storm. Warriors Storm, as you can see on Mix. Bulldogs Sharks, and then the new Dolphins taking on the Raiders to bring down the curtain on what will be, for the Rugby League purists out there, and you all are that's watched us tonight, what a feast of Rugby League we've got to look forward to this week. It's the longest show we've ever done. We're not apologising for it. We have been overjoyed to have the legend that is Martyn Sadler with us. I think everybody will have enjoyed listening to Martyn's observations, and hopefully, Martyn, you've enjoyed it, and maybe, who knows,
yes.
you will
How much
come
do I have
back.
to pay you for saying all that, by the way?
Nothing at all. Just come back. Just come back.
Dave, pay us lots.
Yeah. No, just. Well, actually, 2 things. One, just come back, and 2, when you're in Warrington, tip us the wink. It'd be lovely to have a beer with you. But we'd love to have you to come back. Tell, as Batman said, tell all your friends about us. If you want to, any reporters, anybody who wants to come on, get them on. This is a Rugby League community. We love the game. Me and Greg, we put this disclaimer up every week. We take no money for doing this. We do this because we love Rugby League. That's what we do. We believe there should be a magazine show every week. We provide it. Fortunately, people enjoy it. They keep coming back for more. Keep telling everybody about us. Keep coming back. Martyn, thank you very much indeed for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, Super League is back. Get to the ground. Get your pies. Get your sausage rolls. Get your pints. Start screaming. We're back. Super League 2023. Next week, we'll be looking at all the highlights. All the usual features are back, plus some new ones. You can't beat a bit of weekly, 8 o'clock next Tuesday. Enjoy your Rugby League. Greg, as always, mate, loving your company. Martyn, sir, thank you very much.
An absolute pleasure, Martyn. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks,
all
Greg.
the best, everybody. Yeah. You take care now.
Bye.
Bye.
Martyn, you've been a star.
Thanks, David. I'll have to go, though, because I'm a bit late getting home now. So.